All the lights around the basement turned red while Terry and I were completely locked in the basement. And then a laugh rang out. Hello guys, Karina and Terry are back. If you want to follow more of our story, please support us by clicking like and subscribe. Thank you all! Although there was a bit of trouble with Ronald during the winter break, I am a person who really likes quiet spaces and the feeling of being alone. So staying in the house instead of having to go out to face each other is a good idea, especially when the cold of the blizzard roams around.
Not only that, thanks to him, our reputation has continuously increased. Many letters have been sent to the mailbox of this beautiful detective, Terry. However, if any poor cat gets lost, I will still find it and bring it back to its owner. We shouldn't let such adorable creatures wander around in cold snowstorms, right?
Terry has finally made the decision to use her house as a temporary headquarters. More precisely, to utilize her bedroom as a location for case research and investigation. That day, we started by reading letters and moving on to the new case.
Unbelievable! 4 cats have been found, and we still have tons of letters left to deal with. Where do we have to start?
Speaking of letters, how do you feel about the last Rose letter?
Perhaps it's a fan, but a cool villain would be much more awesome, don't you think? I want more of this thrill.
Is there nothing you can conclude from that letter?
The information obtained is completely meaningless. That font is the font that any printer at the present time can print. And the rose essential oil marinated on the letter was also detected by Poppy, and it doesn't lead anywhere. Eventually, we can't pursue the pigeon to locate its owner by air, can we?
So what do you think?
If he wants to build me a stage and make me dance, then let him come and let the games begin. Don't worry, my advisor. Detective Terry will handle everything just fine.
Terry then decided to start with the earliest sent letter among the letters. It was a letter from an antique clock shop owner named Vincent about the loss of an extremely valuable clock. We'll start with that case. Terry and I immediately showed up at the owner Vincent's store, but only saw a young guy cleaning the store.
I'm Henry. How can I help you two beautiful young ladies?
We are Terry and Karina. We came because Mr. Vincent sent us a letter about the store losing a clock.
Ah, yes, indeed. Please have a seat and enjoy our tea. The boss will soon come down to welcome you two. Now please allow my absence.
After Henry left to continue his work cleaning the store, a man in an extremely elegant suit came down from the stairs.
This must be Terry and Karina. I've heard about you two. Forgive me if the shop's atmosphere is a bit stuffy. I don't want the masterpieces here to get covered in dust. Henry, could you kindly help me slightly open the window? Thank you so much. So let's get started, shall we? But first, please forgive me for asking who Terry is.
It's me, sir, and this is Karina. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
What a pleasure to see such a young generation being so talented. And please, call me Vincent. I'm just a humble clock shop owner.
All right, Mr. Vincent, tell us more about the clock.
Ah, yes, it's an antique table clock made by a German artisan in the 18th century as a gift from my great-grandfather. It's our family's inheritance, and it's extremely meaningful. Here, please take a glance at this picture. The clock is entirely handmade down to the gears and is accompanied by the well-known Westminster, written in 1793 by the English composer William Crotch.
Lord, through this hour be thou our guide, so by thy power no foot shall slide.
Magnificent, Karina. It's rare to see a young girl like this understand the meaning of Westminster. 16 outstanding musical notes, isn't it?
So, Mr. Vincent, if the thief wanted to sell the clock, how much would it cost?
If auctioned, I dare to use my ancestors' honor to guarantee that the starting price will not be lower than $500,000. However, since it's such a significant memento, I wouldn't sell it, even if I were offered 10 times more.
Yes, tell us more about how the clock got lost.
I remember clearly that day after the store closed. I took the clock out, cleaned it carefully, wound it, and then put it back in its original position on my table. Please follow me. It will be more helpful in the investigation process.
After that, Mr. Vincent took us to the private room where he worked for Terry to observe.
Mr. Vincent, I have also obtained some clues and have a few questions.
Please be my guest.
Did you lock the window that day?
It's always been like that. I think I'm not that old to lose my sanity.
So why didn't you tell the police and instead you chose us?
Oh, of course, 2 is better than 1, right? But the police said that they were completely helpless after sending a few rude guys to come and make a mess of my room. I really can't stand not being neat and tidy. They promised to report back to us if there were results.
Okay, that's enough for today. Will you be here, Mr. Vincent, in case I need to ask you a question or contact you?
It's always been like that. My door will always be open to welcome you two, and I'll inform Henry.
Vincent walked us out of the door before returning. I have never met a man as courteous and polite as him. Terry said nothing to me at all on the way home. I have never witnessed Terry go that long without saying anything. However, as soon as she entered the room, she reverted to her normal self. She drew a number of things on the investigation board as she raced around the space and continued telling me about the things she discovered.
Here, I will enlighten you right here. I observed every corner of that room, and the only suspicious point was a tiny scratch on the lock of the window. That scratch showed that someone had used an extremely sophisticated tool to open the window and then break into the room to steal Uncle Vincent's clock. There was absolutely no strange hair or dust originating from outside the room. Finally, after searching for a cat for a very long time, I was finally faced with a true case. So, game on.
The next day, Terry told me to stay in her room to search the black market for antique auctions to find the clock, and she took Poppy the dog through Mr. Vincent's shop to hopefully find a little more clue. I spent the whole afternoon searching, and unexpectedly, I found that there was a clock very similar to Mr. Vincent's description that was being prepared for auction in this city. In contrast to me, Terry returned to the room with a sad face, but after hearing my news, Terry immediately went into the state of extreme excitement.
You guys didn't know Poppy and I spent an entire afternoon in Mr. Vincent's room without collecting anything. Even though Vincent's tea was delicious and Poppy was also fed a full belly of biscuits by Henry, that was all we got. But thanks to my amazing advisor and her superb probing abilities,
Terry and I learned about the auction and prepared for the trip. Because it was an underworld auction, we were forced to disguise ourselves as 2 men in black. Terry got us 2 fake beards and they looked ridiculous.
come on, Karina, don't you see that we are very handsome?
We set out to go to the auction in an underground bunker at night. When I arrived, I was extremely overwhelmed as I was surrounded by many different segments of society. Even people who looked extremely dignified and presentable had appeared here for this auction. We waited patiently. The auction included countless precious items such as black pearls, diamond necklaces, and antique paintings. All of these items were extremely expensive, and we finally waited until the clock appeared.
Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude this evening, we would like to introduce a masterpiece from the 18th century, crafted entirely by human hand as a symbol of elegance. Well, let's welcome our masterpiece, an antique table clock. The seller's starting bid is $700,000. Now then, let's begin.
Huh?
We immediately recognized that it was Mr. Vincent's clock, but the problem was that we needed to find the seller. In this underground world, all transactions are anonymous, but in today's auction, all the sellers showed up when introducing items to greet guests. It seemed like they all knew each other from before, but the person who sold the clock was an anonymous person.
He could pull a fast one on Karina, but not on me. I observed a human figure standing behind the scenes very immediately. And at an auction like this, nobody would have a need to hide so closely if it weren't for the mysterious seller. I dragged Karina with me right away and headed backstage. By the time we got backstage, all that was standing there was a mannequin posing with its arms out, and in the palm of the mannequin's hand was a box. I opened the box, and it was a letter exactly like the rose letter that the dove had brought to me. The content of the letter was only a few letters, and suddenly, the atmosphere outside the cellar became strangely silent. Feeling that something was wrong, Karina and I immediately ran out, but all the people in the cellar seemed to have just evaporated from the ground. Suddenly, all the lights around the basement turned red, while Karina and I were completely locked in this basement. And then, a laugh rang out.
Terry and Karina, forgive me for not being there to welcome you properly. Consider the following as my gift to you. I truly hope we can meet again.
Karina and I ran as fast as we could to the exit, but the door was locked. And underneath the door was another box. Inside was a clock repair kit and a rose letter with the line, "Tick-tock, Terry, tick-tock." It seemed like he wanted me to use this toolkit to unlock the door. Almost immediately, the entire room was covered with an extremely unpleasant smelling gas.
Terry, this is ammonia. If we don't get out of here quickly, you and me will die here.
I was extremely scared after hearing what Karina said, but the only way was to open this door. I used everything I learned about locks to try to open the door, but I needed to hurry. Karina was gradually fading next to me, and I also started to feel dizzy and have difficulty breathing because of the smell of this gas. I finally broke the lock on the door, and we both got out of that cellar full of toxic gas. Karina completely fainted. I immediately called an ambulance and took her to the hospital. Fortunately, the time we were in there was not too long, so Karina quickly regained consciousness, and we quickly left the hospital. But as soon as we got out of the hospital gone, a pigeon landed right in front of us, and I quickly realized it was a carrier pigeon. It was a rose letter with the text, "How lovely, Terry." It seemed he was very happy to see us escape his deadly trap. I left Karina at home to rest, and then went to Mr. Vincent's shop alone to tell him about what had just happened. Vincent was extremely worried and offered me a delicious cup of honey tea to help me recover. But then, when Henry brought me the cup of tea, even though the smell of the cup of tea was very fragrant, it could not overwhelm the faint smell of ammonia on Henry's body. Why was Henry in that basement? Was he also looking for the clock like us? Realizing something unusual, I asked Mr. Vincent's permission and left. After I told Karina everything, she gave me a great suggestion.
Have you considered that Mr. Vincent deliberately lost the clock to receive compensation from the insurance company? Your parents own the largest insurance company in the city, or you should go and ask them.
Oh, Karina, you saved me another goal. You are truly a genius. Then I went to ask my parents, and they said that there was indeed a guest on their list named Vincent who had an insurance policy on an antique clock worth more than $2 million. Such a large amount of money would be a fatal blow to the reputation and finances of my parents' company. Now I am certain that this is a plan to target my family's finances and honor, and the main mastermind is Vincent. I immediately brought 2 family bodyguards to Vincent's shop, and through the glass door, I saw Vincent dusting the cabinets in his usual suit. I immediately told 2 bodyguards to rush in and control him, but when he turned him over, It was not Vincent, but Henry wearing the same suit. I asked the bodyguards to stand at the exit so I could interrogate him.
Terry, the boss compliments you for finding out the truth so early.
Cut the crap, Henry. Where is Vincent? Why are you targeting my family?
You will meet him when he allows. But now, haven't you worked very hard to find the clock?
Henry pulled out a remote from his pocket and pressed the button. Then a bookshelf on the shelf behind him turned over, and the clock was there. Then, with a sly smile, Henry told me,
Until next time, Terry.
I immediately called the bodyguards to stop him from doing anything. But suddenly all the light in the house went out, and there we were in darkness. The lights came on after a little while, and Henry vanished along with the watch. The only thing left was a rose that was placed on the table in front of me, and Westminster's music filled the room.